Why did one of the most formidable forces in history, the German Wehrmacht, steer clear of invading Switzerland during World War II? As the storm clouds of war gathered over Europe, Switzerland declared its staunch neutrality, a tradition deeply ingrained in its national identity. This small, landlocked country has maintained its neutral stance since the early 19th century, even as the continent around it was repeatedly carved up by conflict. Switzerland's commitment to neutrality was tested like never before during World War II. While countries around it fell one after another, Switzerland remained an island of peace in a sea of turmoil. The Swiss not only fortified their borders but also engaged in a complex balancing act, maneuvering diplomatically between the Axis and Allied powers. They maintained their economic interactions with both sides, ensuring their strategic importance remained intact. But was it just the tradition of neutrality that kept the German tanks at bay, or was there more to this story? Imagine a fortress, not just any fortress, but an entire country turned into a defensive stronghold. This is the story of Switzerland during World War II, a nation that transformed itself into an impregnable bastion to deter any potential aggressors. Nestled in the heart of Europe, Switzerland's geographical layout plays a pivotal role in its defense strategy. The Swiss Alps, a majestic range with peaks soaring over 13,000 feet, form a natural barrier that is both formidable and breathtaking. These mountains are not merely scenic, they are strategic, serving as a colossal fortification that guards the country's borders. Beyond the natural defenses, Switzerland embarked on an ambitious military project known as the National Redoubt. This initiative saw the construction of numerous bunkers, hidden artillery positions, and underground fortresses throughout the Alpine region. These were not hastily constructed defenses, they were the result of meticulous planning and engineering, designed to leverage the rugged terrain to Switzerland's advantage. The concept of total national defense was ingrained in the Swiss psyche. Every citizen was a potential soldier, every bridge and tunnel a fortified checkpoint. By the outbreak of World War II, Switzerland had mobilized hundreds of thousands of its citizens, all trained and ready to defend their homeland. The Swiss military doctrine was clear. In the event of an invasion, they would retreat to the Alps, where they could mount a prolonged resistance, exploiting their geographical stronghold. Infrastructure, too, played a crucial role. Roads, railways, and bridges were engineered to be easily destructible in the event of an attack, ensuring that any invading force would find only rubble and ruin should they attempt to penetrate the heart of Switzerland. This daunting mountain fortress, bristling with defenses, was no low-hanging fruit in the military strategy. The Swiss had not merely prepared for an invasion, they had transformed their entire country into a fortress, one that stood resilient and unyielding amidst the turmoil of war. In war, sometimes the pen proves mightier than the sword, especially when it writes checks. The economic interactions between Nazi Germany and Switzerland during World War II exemplify this adage in a stark and strategic manner. Switzerland, renowned for its banking secrecy and financial acumen, became an indispensable financial hub for the Nazis. The country's banks managed vast amounts of gold, including significant quantities looted from occupied territories. This gold was crucial for the Third Reich, as it was used to sustain and expand its war efforts. The Swiss provided the Nazis with a laundering service, transforming plundered treasure into usable assets on the global stage. Moreover, Switzerland's geographical location and neutrality made it a perfect intermediary for international trade. With most of Europe embroiled in conflict and chaos, neutral flags were invaluable. Germany exploited Swiss neutrality by using Swiss channels to trade with countries outside the Axis sphere, particularly in North and South America. These trade channels were vital for Germany to obtain materials and goods otherwise blocked by Allied embargoes and naval blockades. It wasn't just about being a conduit for goods. Switzerland also offered financial services that were critical for Germany. Swiss banks extended credit to the Nazi regime, credits that were often underpinned by the stolen gold reserves. This financial support helped Germany to mitigate some of the economic sanctions imposed by the Allies. In return, Switzerland received assurances from Germany regarding its sovereignty and continued economic cooperation. This mutual dependence created a complex web of economic interests, wherein an invasion would have been detrimental to both parties. Simply put, By maintaining its status as a financial artery for Nazi Germany, Switzerland made itself too valuable to be annexed. Thus, Switzerland played a complex game of economic chess, making itself indispensable to both sides in the conflict. Diplomacy is the art of telling people to go to hell in such a way that they ask for directions. Nowhere was this art more masterfully displayed than in Switzerland during World War II. The small Alpine nation, surrounded by Axis powers and their territories, managed to maintain its neutrality through a combination of shrewd diplomacy and strategic international relations. Switzerland's diplomatic strategies were multifaceted. On one hand, it engaged with the Axis powers, allowing transit routes and even managing trade lines that were crucial for countries like Germany and Italy. However, it was a balancing act. The Swiss also made significant efforts to maintain relations with Allied powers. They hosted diplomatic negotiations and served as a channel for communication between the warring factions. One of the most notable examples of Swiss diplomacy was its role in representing foreign interests. Switzerland took on the role of protecting power for 35 countries during the war, overseeing the interests of these nations in territories where their usual diplomatic missions could not operate. This responsibility included everything from looking after abandoned embassies to supervising the treatment of prisoners of war. Furthermore, Switzerland became a hub for espionage and diplomatic meetings, a neutral ground where representatives from both sides could meet, albeit discreetly. This not only enhanced its diplomatic standing but also ensured that it was too valuable as a neutral mediator to be invaded without severe diplomatic repercussions. Through these careful and calculated moves, Switzerland not only safeguarded its own sovereignty, but also managed to assert itself as a vital player in international diplomacy during one of history's most tumultuous periods. Switzerland's adept diplomacy not only preserved its sovereignty but also carved a niche role for itself on the global stage during the war. Every military leader knows that every battle uses up more than just ammunition. It consumes resources, men, and time. Imagine Germany in the thick of World War II, already entangled on various fronts, each demanding immense logistical, human and material investment. Now consider the prospect of invading Switzerland, a country synonymous with formidable defenses and challenging terrain. Switzerland's landscape is a natural fortress. The Swiss Alps, with their steep inclines and narrow valleys, form a daunting barrier. Historically, these mountains have been a nightmare for any invading force, demanding specialized equipment and troops adept at mountain warfare, further straining German military resources which were already spread thin. Moreover, the Swiss had a well-prepared military strategy known as the National Redoubt, which involved retreating to heavily fortified positions in the Alps, making direct assaults costly and time-consuming. The Swiss militia, trained to fight guerrilla warfare in their alpine environment, promised a resistance that was as fierce as it was strategically advantageous. Politically, the costs were also steep. Switzerland maintained a stance of armed neutrality, and was prepared to defend its borders vigorously. Any violation of this neutrality would likely have provoked diplomatic repercussions for Germany, potentially solidifying opposition among neutral states or even drawing new enemies into the conflict. Thus, when weighing the potential gain against the high costs of manpower, military resources and political fallout, the scales did not tip in favor of invasion. The cost of invading Switzerland might have simply been too high, even for a war machine as powerful as Nazi Germany. So why didn't Germany attack Switzerland? The answer is not a simple one. As we've explored the reasons behind this decision, weave a complex tapestry of strategic, economic, and diplomatic threads, each contributing to Switzerland's continued peace amid a continent at war. Firstly, let's revisit the natural fortress that is Switzerland. Nestled within the formidable Alps, the country presented a geographic nightmare for any potential invader. The Swiss, aware of their vulnerable position in the heart of Europe, turned their terrain into an advantage, fortifying tunnels, bridges, and passes. These defenses were not merely physical barriers, they were symbols of a nation prepared to protect its sovereignty at all costs. But Switzerland's strategy extended beyond its mountainous ramparts. Economically, it played an indispensable role in the European landscape. Swiss banks, renowned for their secrecy and reliability, held assets critical to both the Axis and Allied powers. Moreover, Switzerland's industries were a cog in the war machine, supplying precision machinery and chemicals essential for both sides. This economic chess game made Switzerland too valuable to be turned into a battlefield. lest these resources fall into disarray or, worse, into enemy hands. Diplomatically, Switzerland also maneuvered with great acuity. By maintaining relationships with both Axis and Allied powers, it wielded its neutral status as a shield, hosting negotiations and acting as an intermediary for communication between the warring factions. This role further enhanced its position as a neutral necessity, making any disruption of its sovereignty a potentially disastrous move for either side. Finally, the potential cost of invading Switzerland was prohibitively high. The Nazis, already stretched thin across multiple fronts, calculated the resource drain and the probable fierce resistance they would face. The risk, they deemed, far outweighed any potential gain, a testament to the deterrent power of Swiss preparations and strategy. In the chess game of World War II, Switzerland maintained its neutrality not by mere chance but through a combination of strategic planning, economic indispensability, and diplomatic prowess.